Anyways, so I want to talk a little bit about the Emberson and Nurse pairing.
Okay.
I don't think this is the way it's going to end up playing out, because I think Darnell Nurse, as we saw down the stretch in the Cup final, he plays better with a puck mover.
Yes.
And I understand there could be a line of thinking that's like, no, put him with a good defensive player. Ty Emberson is certainly that, although it's only been 30 games. But Ty Emberson, 30 games of his NHL career, but Ty Emberson has very good defensive metrics. So you could sit there and go, okay, do you play Nurse with Emberson because he's the best defensive righty you have, and maybe he can help cover for some of Nurse's mistakes, or maybe with a good defensive partner, Nurse feels more confident rushing the puck, transporting the puck up the ice, which is admittedly when he's at his best.
Totally.
Maybe that's the line of thinking for why Emberson gets to start there. And I get that. But there is another part of me that says, well, I looked at how Nurse played with Broberg in the Cup final, and that was a very good version of Darnell Nurse. I look at how Nurse played for his 3 games with Troy Stecher in the regular season, and that was a very good version of Darnell Nurse. Small sample size, but they had very good results together. Didn't get scored on in 49 minutes of 5-on-5 time on ice. And I go, okay, we've seen Nurse, think about his time with Tyson Barrie, actually perform pretty well with a puck-moving defenseman. With Nurse and Barrie as the top pairing, this team somehow went to a Western Conference final. And that's not me saying that that pairing was elite or that that pairing drove them.
It figured it out.
But it worked.
Yeah.
So I think Nurse's best partner is actually Troy Stecher. And the way this kind of goes is if you put him with a good puck mover, they get the puck out of the zone together more. They spend less time in their D zone, and there's less time for mistakes to happen that end up in the back of your net.
Yes.
And then you put Emberson with Kulak, and you have what I think could be a very, very high-level shutdown duo. When you're in the D zone, you start them. When you're on home ice, you play them against the other team's best players some nights. What that does is allow you to play Darnell Nurse in softer minutes in a more sheltered role, and you might roll your eyes and say, holy shit, $9.25 million to $9.25 million to have a guy on your, what would basically be your third pairing, I think is how you look at it. Why do you have to shelter him? All that. But I don't care.
I don't care.
I want to just get the best out of him. And if getting the best out of Darnell Nurse comes from sheltering his minutes a bit, putting Emberson and Kulak together, playing them as a shutdown duo, putting Stecher with Nurse and saying, hey, you two are going to play in a sheltered, maybe even primarily offensive role together. Ekholm and Bouchard are going to take the top pairing minutes.
Yep.
If the other two there are going to play in a primarily sheltered role together and give you good results, why do I care if they're playing the third most out of everyone if the results are good?
I think one thing with Cody, Ceci, and Nurse last year, and I noticed this, it was sometimes hard to pick this up on the TV, but when you're in the game, sometimes it felt like Ceci also wanted to be like that puck-moving defenseman,
and he
just wasn't good at it. I wonder if Nurse and Emberson would actually work well, because I don't think Emberson wants to do that. I don't think Emberson's going to be like chip out the glass, and that's kind of his role. Like, I think he's got a bit more to him than that. So I wonder if that would also help Nurse, knowing that his defensive partner is one, can move the puck and has that side to him, but also is going to be reliable behind him too, which would give you that. With Troy Stecher, I just find it very strange they re-signed him. Like, I'm happy he's back. I think he's a solid player. I think he can play more than what we've seen, because we barely saw him. But I don't know. It just seems odd that they brought a guy back who they didn't even want to play in the regular season. And now we're at the point, and granted, Philip Broberg leaving.
I don't think they didn't want to play him. I think he was just their 7th D, and the opportunity never came up.
But they felt it okay to scratch Ceci at points, and he didn't really fill in
the playoffs.
In the regular season, remember he had an injury.
Oh yeah,
and that's whatever. Respect the game. With Stecher, I don't know. I really want to see Stecher do well, and maybe he can go play with Nurse, but I feel way more confident being like, okay, Emberson, you can give this shot with Nurse for top 4, and we'll see what Stecher can do next to Kulak, who, quite frankly, could make any of us an NHL defenseman.
Yeah. Who cares what we have to say? What did Oilers head coach Kris Knoblauch have to say about finding Darnell's partner? Let's take a listen.
That is an important factor of camp through exhibition to find that ideal partner. But I think first thing that needs to be done is find the best player or best players to make this team. and not necessarily find the best partner for Darnell first. We want to find out who's the best to make this team. We've got several guys that have an opportunity to do that. And then once we find out which players, then we'll find out the partner. So I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and say we need to find that partner for Darnell right away. And because also Darnell's not going to play the first few exhibition games. He'll probably sit out the couple just with his rehab. And maybe later on in the exhibition, then we'll be really seeing who his partner should be.
Interesting. We had a comment in here from Dave Lund. He said, please don't pretend that Ceci is the only D pairing that Nurse had trouble playing with. Nurse struggled playing with Bouchard, Kulak, and Desharnais. Okay, few things here that I just want to get up. He struggled playing with Desharnais, which, again, maybe goes back to you need a good puck mover with him. Okay?
Well, also, I think that goes to maybe Vinny just wasn't a top 4 defenseman.
There's an idea.
Yeah.
He struggled with Brett Kulak. Brett Kulak struggled on his offside.
Yeah.
And he admitted to us at media day of the Stanley Cup final, to our faces, that he wasn't that comfortable with it. We are media.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, and when he was with Bouchard was a young player. To be fair, Bouchard kind of struggled with everybody else besides.
I know. Okay, but can I also just read you? Last season, Nurse and Bouchard played 82 5v5 minutes together. Okay, shot attempts 111 to 70 for the Oilers. Actual shots 63 to 49. The goals were 5-4, but their on-ice shooting or save percentage together was 871. Like, if they get mildly competent goaltending, their numbers, they're actually a really good pairing. I think the problem was, one, at the point they tried them together, the goaltending was terrible. Like, 871 at 5v5 is ass. Yeah. That's an intellectual way to put it. It was ass. They actually weren't a bad pairing. The results just weren't there because the team was a mess. And the goaltending stunk. So I disagree with the Bouchard part. I think you can look back at his time with Bouchard. You can now look at his time with Stecher. You can look at his time with Broberg. And to an extent, you can look at his time with Barry and go to the puck mover, go to the puck mover, go to the puck mover. And then you look and go, struggle with Kulak, struggle with Desharnais, and struggled with Cody Ceci. And it's like, okay, so 3 defensemen with good results, puck mover, puck mover, puck mover. 3 defensemen with bad results, defensive guy, defensive guy, defensive guy. Yeah,
I think the evidence proves what is right and what is wrong. I just think Nurse needs to step up too. And at the end of the day, like you said, like like you said, I said, I don't really care where he plays. He just needs to play well consistently. And we saw that at the start of last season. He was good. Played really well in the absence of Matthias Ekholm too. That should be put out there.
And I don't think it's overly concerning because it is a very, very long regular season. But that's what is disappointing about Darnell Nurse not being healthy or 100% healthy and not being ready to go for maybe 4 preseason games, because you might only have 2. And if the team goes, okay, we want to try him with Emberson, and that's the 2 preseason games, it's like, if it doesn't work, you kind of ran out of time to try another experiment in the preseason when the games don't matter. But here was Darnell Nurse talking about his health and his status.
Update us on where you're at, and just, is it just contact that they're holding you back from?
They get to answer that. I'm not going to dive into the injury or whatever. I got to dive into it.
Are you confident that you'll be good to go when the season begins?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
I mean, you seemed how do you feel, Darnell? Because we were watching you out there, and you did most of the drills and kind of.
All of them.
Yeah, you did all of them. So you didn't seem to be backing off.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't. I mean, it's a fluid thing. Take it day by day, but I'm feeling good.
All right, good stuff.
Weird interview.
Yep. Little awkward.
Pretty confident, he says with a high squeaky voice.
Pretty confident.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when we watched these clips before the show, we spoke about it, like Nurse and I think a few other Oilers, since Nurse was basically called out for being crap in playoffs, has had a bit of, what would you call it? Arrogance is the wrong word.
Yeah.
What did I say before the show? Come on, help me out.
Swagger, cockiness, ego, arrogance.
No.
Okay, wait. We'll tie it into a comment like Sam Scotch. Why does he act so smug?
Maybe that's.
I will be totally honest with you guys. If I was Darnell Nurse and I had to listen to a good chunk of the media and fan base in this city, constantly
Totally.
roast me, I would also be a little arrogant in my media conferences. I that's a fine reaction. I'm not going to sit here and be like, what the hell, Darnell Nurse. Also, Mulick, I will say we shouldn't have to insulate our $9.25 million defenseman. We talked about that a little bit, right?
I agree.
And I get where you're coming from, but let me put it into this kind of analogy. You go and you spend $75,000 on a new vehicle. Whew, you're feeling good. You spent up, you splurged, but hey, you want a nice vehicle.
Yep.
Month into it, it has engine problems. Do you just sit there and keep driving it and go, I shouldn't have to repair this? Or do you just go get it fixed? And with Darnell Nurse, it's like, do you just continue to roll him out in a role that's not giving you good results? Or do you sit there and say, let's just put him in a spot where he can succeed? It sucks we have to do it, but you got to do it.
You got to get the best out of your players at the end of the day.
Just like you'd have to get the best out of your car.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.